I went through a divorce, and I think it was quite painful, and this prepared me for the job. Because when I came to work, people had gone through traumatic experiences, they had lost everything, and me, I felt like I had lost a marriage and like I had lost the whole world. So I think that, I would say, could be an experience that sort of made me see other people's pain and forgot mine. And in a way, it healed me from what I was going through. My name is Jane Kuria. I come from Rimuru, that's Kiambu County. I started off my career as a teacher, and along the way I found myself in the correctional space. So currently I'm the CEO of Faraja Foundation. Faraja is a non-profit social impact organization. Most of our work is within the correctional facilities, supporting those behind bars. We do business startup skills just to be able to prepare these people for eventual reintegration so that they can have the skills that they need. After many years of my work in this space, in 2023, I also got an opportunity to join the Power of Mercy Advisory Committee. This is a committee that is tasked with the sole mandate of advising the President on matters mercy. And this is a very, very noble task. And it was because of my many years in the space that is rehabilitation and reintegration that I got this opportunity to work with this committee, which also is supporting very many people just get their cases listened to through petitioning. And we are all eager to support the people to get support if they need to get the support, so that they can go back to their families, their communities, and also help in building of the society. There are many, many experiences, many, many people that I have met over the years. But I think for me, it's listening to the people that are behind bars and getting to know the real story, which is not heard by people out there. But one case in particular that touched me is when I was very new at my workstation at Faraja. And I visited a lady in prison. That was my first time actually to go to prison. This child was about 3 years or 4, a small boy. And his mother was at the remand. She was still going to court. A very small case of assault. They had fought with another lady. And when I was interviewing the mother was crying. And this boy was wiping the tears and saying, "Mom, usilie." And I was like, wow, this is a child telling the mother not to cry. I also started crying, so we were all crying. And I think the boy was like, where are these women? Because the boy doesn't understand. So I was interested, because I was imagining everybody is a criminal in the prisons. And I asked this lady, I think she was Jacinta or Margaret. And I asked her, Margaret, what is your story? And she told me it was just in the home environment, in the estate. Another lady talked about her and she hit her. And this lady called cops and she found herself at the remand. So I was like, wow, she's not a criminal. It's just something that any one of us could do because of maybe anger or the things that happen every day. And that sort of changed my perspective at that point. And I wanted to listen to people. Before, I had never had a chance to listen to people behind bars. I was in a different profession. So I got to listen to people. And there are people who are very innocent. They are behind bars, but nobody knows. Everybody imagines that's a criminal, they have committed this and the other. But some are actually very innocent. There are those who have, of course, offended. But you also listen to them. And you realize that what somebody has gone through in their lives sometimes makes them do what they have done. There are people probably have never had any family sort of upbringing. They are from single parenthood, dysfunctions. And these people have gone through so much, including abuse. So that's all they know. So they end up doing the same. And I realized, wow, people actually need help. People in the prisons don't need to be condemned. They need help. There are those, of course, we still feel they should probably serve their sentence. And being in prison, you're actually paying for whatever you did. because there is nothing as hard as your freedoms being taken away from you. So by the fact you are behind bars, you cannot see your people, you cannot go to your kitchen and make a meal or whatever. You're already suffering. You're already paying for your crime. So you realize that that is what people have done, so give them a second chance. But I must say that maybe the founder of Faraja, who is late now, Father Peter, is a person I borrowed from. Because when I came in and he interviewed me and he told me what he does and where his heart is. At first, I didn't think I could do it. But when I went to prison, I saw how his life is. I decided to give it a shot. So it's something that I was not born with, but you just grew up with it. And many of the people started coming out of prisons, and they also come to us for help. And they are ready to really change. They are ready to confess. They are ready to give back whatever somebody else lost. So you realize that actually being in prison, people also make amends. There are those who, if it was not prison, there would be different people. Maybe they would even have been killed or shot or whatever. But now they have changed their lives and they are ready to start helping other people in prison. People who leave the prisons, they also want to go back and help. And that sort of takes you to look, it makes you look at them differently and you want to support them. Because again, I have never slept in a prison, so I really don't know what it is. But if somebody who has been in prison for a couple of years, even months, because even being in prison, even a week, maybe even a day, spending the night there, your life changes. So when you interact with such and they want to go back and help, and they have the experience which you may not have, then you want to do it even better. You know, listening is a skill that many people actually don't have. In my other life, I was a teacher. And teachers are supposed to be saying, not listening to anyone. So I struggled a little bit to listen. Many people have asked me if I was once convicted of a crime, that why are you going to prisons if you didn't have a past like that? One person even asked me, is it that you can't get another job, that this is what you have to do? And sometimes you don't have an answer, you just let it go. So perceptions have been very, very many, that people imagine there's something you're getting out of these people that you support. Because not everybody in prisons is actually poor. There are people who are from well-up families and something happened. They found themselves at the wrong place, maybe at the right time, or the right place at the wrong time. So the perceptions I've had is maybe there's something you're getting out of this, or maybe you have a past as a criminal, or you have offended, or whatever it is. But the best is not to respond. Or there are those who may have to maybe explain that it became a calling, because this is not a job. It's not a job really. Doing what we do, going into prisons and associating with this kind of people, it's not a job. It's more of a calling. So it's ignorance. I think it's ignorance. And on the other hand, we have the responsibility to educate people. Because there are people who really don't know what prisons are for, and all they hear is committing crimes, killing people, or whatever. So our role is also to educate. So we do a lot of education, because if you don't educate, then it means that people leaving prisons will never be accepted back. So you have to purposely talk to the community, sometimes even the family members, and even tell them these people actually have changed, because if you don't do that, they'll be still stigmatized and go back to prisons. So sometimes you understand where people are coming from. Because I mean, who goes to prison because they are so good? Even if you are innocent, who knows that? So sometimes you understand where people are coming from. And of course, there are people who have lost a lot because of someone else that is in prison. They're victims. Their parent maybe was killed, or maybe they lost property. So people have their own pain also, those who are outside on the other side. And you see sometimes when you are seen with the prisoners, people may fail to understand how comes we don't see her with the victim, because there's also, as long as there's a prisoner or an inmate, there's a victim in most cases. So I understand where people are coming from with their misconceptions, and there are many, but creating awareness is also something that we really do. And we take people to the prisons to actually see for themselves, to talk to these people if they want to, so that they can understand. So I believe we have been put there for a reason. I grew up in Rimuru, and there was nothing that ever prepared me to go to prison. Only now when I got into prison, I realized how I'm from a very big family. We are 11 of us, and I'm number 10. There was always a struggle to get the bare minimum, including everything. But because it was in the village, you survive with what you have. So I imagine lack of maybe just basics sometimes makes people now do what they have done. But when I look at my past, I really was never prepared about the prison work. Actually, when I went to high school, I mean, you grow up as a young child like any other in the village. That's in the 70s. You go to school, you finish school, you don't even know what you want to do in your career. But when now I wanted to join university in the 90s, unemployment was still very high. And I remember my mother, who was very illiterate. I don't know how she knew that teachers don't have a problem getting jobs, because my mother had not gone to school. She told me, you go and do teaching, you won't lack a job. So I went and did teaching, because your mother has said that. So at that point, teachers were just being hired immediately, given a job. So I never again thought about anything to do with prison. So I don't think anything ever prepared me for prison work. Actually, I think I just got into prison by default, because the job that I now work at Faraja, I saw it in the newspaper. I didn't even know what really this is all about, but I wanted to change. Again, the teaching had become something that I was a bit tired, because teaching is also too monotonous. You do the same thing. And I think I like a lot of changing. And but before I just to go back a little bit, when I taught, at some point I decided to join the NGO world. In the early 2000s, I felt like I needed a change. And in the process of changing, the job I got was in the making of the Constitution, because I felt like I needed my voice to be heard. So I worked for an organization that worked on constitution, human rights, and advocacy at that point. Then I joined another one that worked on HIV/AIDS. And then I went back to teaching again. And now when I was teaching in 2009 is when I saw this job. They were looking for a programs officer at Faraja. I didn't even know, I had never been to prison. And I applied for the job. It was in the newspaper. And I think there were about maybe over 300 applicants. I'm not sure how they landed to me. But to look at my past, maybe just being a people's person, because that's what my background is. You are out there, you listen to people's issues, you try and sort people's issues, unconsciously. That prepared me for the job that I have at Faraja, or working with prisoners, with the justice system. Because you have to have patience. You have to be able to work with anyone, no matter how humble, no matter how big. Because in prisons, you meet all calibers of people. In fact, people say prisons are like hospitals. You know how hospitals, anyone walks in? Prisons are like that. So I wouldn't really place that one thing that has made my work maybe easier or interesting when I grew up, because even what I studied is completely different. But just to mention that in 2009, I went through a divorce. And I think it was quite painful, and this prepared me for the job. Because when I came to work, to Faraja, people had gone through traumatic experiences, they had lost everything. And me, I felt like I had lost a marriage and like I had lost the whole world. I always say this may have prepared me to this job, because I could relate to people's pains and losing something that was important for you. But again, I quickly realized that other people had lost much more. Just to mention that around that time, there was a war in Rwanda, around that time. And we had a lot of people from Rwanda who were in the prisons. Big people, politicians, professionals, they had lost families, they had lost everything. And I talked to a few of them. And I told myself one time, Jane, you have only lost a marriage. And you're still young, you can still marry if you wanted to. Some people here have lost everything that they ever called. And these people are innocent again, because they had run away from their country. because at that time we had a lot of people in, because you are arrested on the streets of Nairobi, you don't have documentation, so you find yourself in Langata Women Prison. So I think that, I would say, could be an experience that sort of made me see other people's pain and forgot mine. And in a way, it healed me from what I was going through. So sometimes you may not think something is important, but when I look at it now, maybe God was bringing me in that space to heal by whatever I had gone through. So, and I became a different person, and I was like, well, let me listen to people's issues. Faraja Foundation was founded in 1999 by a Catholic priest called Father Peter. He was from Switzerland. I joined in 2009, that's about 8 years after. Around this time that I joined Faraja, prisons and the correctional facilities were very closed because they were opened around 2002, but before then were closed up. But when I came in, there were other programs at Faraja, but I was given the prison work. And my work was to streamline these prison activities. You know, sometimes a priest really does work from the heart, not looking at what structures they want to put in place. They just want to make sure people are helped and people get what they need. So one of my roles was to put some sort of systems in place to be able to also focus the work that we do. Instead of just giving people maybe some need, you want to make it sustainable. So that is how that's how I began at Faraja. That time it was quite a bit difficult because, you know, of course, prison officers, by their training, is to keep law and order, because they are also in the discipline services. But I realized they're actually very good. Some of them are very kind and they will listen to you. And I think the confidence that I came in, because I would just go to a prison and I'm talking to a prison officer and they would listen, and maybe a challenge is happening and you want to help in that challenge. At least Father Peter had already started the footsteps. So it was kind of easy. It was not that we were beginning something new. And the name Faraja had a very special heart in many people in the prisons, especially in Nairobi. So I remember I would just go, and initially, like I had said, I wanted to understand. So I was not quite keen on maybe talking to the officers more. It's understanding what the prisoner has faced. But quickly, I realized that you can't work effectively in that space if you ignore the officer. So I sort of befriended the officers, because that's the only way to understand your environment. Correctional officers, sometimes called prison officers, you have to work through them, because they are the ones that's their job. Even if the main mandate of the prison system is for safe custody, they also have the rehabilitation. So I realized that to be able to do your work, you have to bring the officer in charge or the officers here and the inmates almost at a space that is very equal, so that you understand what the officers also go through, because they are the main agents of change. They stay with these people throughout, as we come and go, as we come and go. So that way they were able to see you're not coming for the inmate only, because at that point, because now the prisons were kind of really opening up, there was this thing that people just come for the rights of inmates, the human rights you're coming to talk about, inhumane conditions, about their uniforms, yet you don't understand what the officer also goes through. Because you can imagine spending your whole day with people behind bars. Sometimes some of them work at night. The kind of challenging situations they also go through. You have to be there, whether you didn't commit any crime, but that's your job. Actually, the prison officers are also behind bars, but that's their space of working. So I quickly realized that it's important to consider the officer and the inmate. And that way, because before then, I think people viewed correctional officers. Actually, then it was being called prisons. They were even being called wardens and warders, which is a little bit demeaning. So they were always considered as people who had no other thing to do. This was the only job that people who probably failed could find. So I came in with a different perspective. And I have very good friends up to now who are correctional officers. And people are actually educated. These guys have gone to school. So I came in with that and I befriended them to understand what happens. And I think that's how Faraja really got into that level. And by the grace of God, that if I wanted to see even the Commissioner General, they would be willing to hear what do these people have to offer. But it's because they could hear from the ground what is happening on the ground. These people actually come themselves to the prison. They don't just send some social worker or some counselor. You are actually there. Because then I was in the prisons throughout, especially Nairobi Remand, which is for remandees and is for men, and Langata, which is for the women. At that point were the focus prisons. But of course, over the years, we have been to the prisons mostly all over the country, because we also realized we can't marginalize those ones not in the urban areas. I think the minute one gets into prison, and not just at the gate or the officer's office, but you go to the wards, sometimes they are called wards, or the cells where people sleep, you can never be the same again. So you will go home in the evening and you can't even sleep, because you're like, wow, is that how people sleep? Is that the kind of environment people have to go through, even if they have committed crimes? And you realize that now that you have that space, because not everybody has even that privilege to go inside. So once you are in there and you realize you can do so much to change people's lives just by being you and coming to see them. Because when you see them and they see you as the one who is going to change their lives. So that by itself, talking to them and getting out there and being able to talk to other people out there, and there are those who listen. Like if you're asking for support, people are willing to get funds. If you are at the remand, you are remanded at the remand, you're going to court. You realize there's something I can do about this person so that they don't have to go through imprisonment. We can even get a lawyer for this lady or this man to have their cases listened, because poverty also affects the system. Because you can't even afford a lawyer. Sometimes you have 5,000 shillings you have to pay as bail, and you can't even afford that. So once you realize, actually, there are very small things you can do to change people's lives, and you have that privilege to actually be the one going there. I think for me, it brought a different perspective, that even if it was looking for money, because you have to look for money to do everything that we do, I was able to do it. Because there are many, at that point, of course, not anybody could just walk into the prison. You need a permit. We needed a permit to go to prisons. And getting that permit for Faraja, it was kind of very easy. So you also realize it's actually a privilege to be able to get this permit. So at the end of the day, God really had a purpose for me to be able to go in there. And like I said, because I had gone through maybe an experience in life, now I was able to see people and what they require. And when I went home, and it was difficult, sometimes you needed to actually talk to a counselor yourself to get debriefed because of what you have seen the whole day. You also needed to debrief, because if you don't, now you have this moodiness, you're like, what is this? You get annoyed even with the government, because you're like, do people really have to go through those things? But then again, the law is the law. And people have to pay for their crimes or whatever has to happen. Because you also realize imprisonment is global. There are prisons all over the world. But I think for me, getting in and out, because these people behind bars, they don't have that privilege. They will not be out. Sometimes some of them send you, Ati, please next time when you come, please bring us some soap. Please call my sister, call my mother, please find out where my children are. Because some women maybe are arrested on the streets, they never will go back home. So the children are left. So you'll be told, please talk to this mother, she's my neighbor, find out if my children are okay. So what do? You have to try and do that, and you have to come back and bring feedback. Because many people, especially women, although Faraja works with everyone, women really suffer, especially if you've left your children just like that. So I think that idea that you have already started seeing people and you have to bring feedback, you really feel like it's your responsibility to come back. And now coming back like that, it becomes a cycle. And you really find yourself just having to do it. But it requires grace. There are very many challenges sometimes in prison, but I must say now it's much better than then. But my first very interaction in prisons, like I said, was the children. And many women, that is all they needed help from, just to know their children are okay, or somebody took them up. So that is one that I really worked on. Even if I would not go myself, I had to work with the social workers, the counselors, give directions. And unfortunately, our system has it that many of the people in the prisons are from very needy backgrounds. So you'll find most of these ladies are coming from Korogosho, Kibera, Wangware, so you you have to go to these spaces. And I forgot to mention, I had worked in these spaces before on a HIV/AIDS program. I had been to almost all the informal settlements, or slums as we mostly call them. So it was easier for me again, because maybe I was prepared, because you rarely find an inmate who you have to go to, for example, Kileleshwa, Karen. It's very rare that you'll find such. So you look for people in the community, look for counselors to be able to go and find out where these children are. And remember, there are no phones at this time. So it's, you are being told, if you pass through this stage, talk to da. But that is one that we really took up, and we really supported many women, because then they're able to live, to serve their sentences, because at least they know my children, somebody took them up, my family came, or my neighbor, they're having a meal. That was one of the things that we did that I can say was really fruitful, and felt like at least even if people are in prison, knowing that their children are okay, it gives us a sense of what we are doing. Medication was also an issue at that point, that people have prescriptions and they can't buy the drugs. And because of our, maybe the name Faraja has, even the name itself Faraja, which is consolation, you would get that prescription, you go and look for the medicine, and you come back with the medicine. And people, that is like a lifeline you have given someone. So those were, they looked like very small things at that point, but we would get prescriptions every week, and we have to look for medicine, and we have to look for drugs. So that also something that most people would imagine that's very mundane, that it's not for a big organization to do. But if you don't have such basic needs are not met, sometimes we have people who even have ailments that are for life. They need medication. So that is also something that we took up at that point. We got pro bono lawyers who are willing to come and take up some cases in the prisons. That was also very empowering for us, because quite a few people were able to get representation and didn't have to go through imprisonment. So you go out there looking for pro bono lawyers, and people, as long as you explain to them, they understand. The lawyers in their training, they have to give a few hours to free service to be able to be full lawyers. So they were willing to be able to be engaged. And because now Faraja is there, we are in the middle, we can take them. So those are some of the small things that, of course, over the years we did very many big things, but initially that was the small things that are really big things that we focused on at that point. We did small things like even entertainment. You know, there are talents in prisons. There are people who have talents. So with the officer in charges and maybe the regional commanders, we used to have what we used to call talents days, extravaganzas. And here is people showcasing their talents. So Faraja would invite everyone who wants to come and see. Maybe some of these people would even build careers of the people behind bars. So we would invite, that time before COVID, it was very nice, it was very open. So we would just invite anyone. And the fact that you're coming through Faraja, you're like, these guys are coming to help. I must say there are people who go to prisons for their own personal interests, but we had such a good name that people knew Faraja really, they do the right things. So you would invite everyone, they would come. Of course, some would get interested to do now this work because they have come and maybe seen there could be money here that you can make. Unfortunately, some of us in the NGO space, we are out to get ourselves rich. So they come and see there's a need. So we would invite people, they would come. Some very good people came and really helped prisoners. So we actually opened the space to people to be able to join in. Now it's a little bit difficult because of COVID and now restrictions. But yes, we had a lot of people that got to know prisons through us. Because the more sometimes the merrier, you bring people because you can't do it alone. So yes, opening up to the world. Of course, later on, we were able to give beds to all the women, for example, in the prisons. We started daycares because their children with their mothers in prison. That's a bit recent, but initially that was not in our picture. But as you move on, you realize this is something that can be done. And because, again, of the good work you have done, there are people willing to support this work. Because everything, like I said before, costs money. And we have not government funding. So you have to look for monies here and there. But the goodwill the founder really, I must say, we really used his name properly and lived his legacy to the fullest. Because like I said before, this is a calling. Even if you went through an interview and you got the job, you quickly realize this is not the job that I had thought it was. I forgot to say that as a young girl, or maybe when I started my work, I was like, every time I go to a job, 3 years for me, I finish next one. Because I went to teach in private schools, and you always wanted to look for the one that has more money. So you kept moving. And I am amazed that now 15 years I've been in one organization. I don't know how that happened. So it becomes, Faraja is more home. It's really home. So prisons, being prisons, are government institutions. And you have to work within the law. So I think something else that has also helped me is, like I had mentioned, is respecting the people that are there. That's their job. So you have to work within, you are told this is up to where you can reach, you cannot go here. You respect that. And in the process of doing that, you become like colleagues. Some people actually think I'm a prison officer because I really interact with them very well. And when you interact with them like that, they appreciate you and will give you even insights that you didn't think about. But something that I am sure came through Faraja is, which has not quite been put into law, and it's not like it's very, it's something that is really bad. You see, once you're in the remand, before your sentence, before the judge has said now you are serving your sentence, ideally you should not work. You should, you actually don't belong to the prisons at that point. You belong to the courts. Prisons, you're only coming to be given like accommodation because you're going to court all the time. And I remember that is something we lobbied positively. You can lobby negatively or positively. We lobbied very positively and really told the authorities that just allow us to give these people something to do, because our justice system has now changed a bit. But those years you could even be behind bars in the remand for close to 10 years. Your case is still ongoing. You are going to court and back. You are going to court and back. So we really lobbied the prison authorities to allow us give some sort of activities for the remands to do, the people going through courts. And that is how we were able to even do a resource center in Langata Women Prison, Nairobi Remand. These ladies and these men could even now do some sort of computer to keep your mind busy. They could knit, they could sew. We did a small library just to keep people sane. So that was not heard of before. And because we really were showing that we really want to support the people, they allowed us to do that, even if it's not anchored in law. Just give space. But this meant that we had to actually build some space because it was not there. So for example, if you go to Langata Women Prison, at the remand, we have a resource center, which has a place for the ladies to sew, to knit, do their hairs. There's a library. There are counseling rooms which are private. That means we are trying to show, even if you're still going to court and you don't quite belong to the prison system per se, you are still a human being. So that is something that I have seen now has happened across many other institutions. I wouldn't say it is really anchored in law, but because of humanitarian grounds and giving people respect and the human rights that people still have even behind bars, now people can be allowed to do those things. I remember one time Father Peter saying that the ladies are so big because you just sit. So we even did a playground so that people can have time to just go and jump up and a bit, up and a bit, because now you are there, you have stress in the mind, your body now is there, you are so big. So, so those are some of the things I remember that we did in the early 2000s. And when I look at them, we didn't need to go to the streets or to say, oh, we want to do this. We didn't have to be loud, because sometimes just talking to the people and seeing what you really are out to get for these ladies or these men That just happened. So over the years, we have lobbied on many other things. Some of them maybe have not gone through. For example, you know that up to now, people coming from prisons, their records are still reading, you are a criminal or you have broken the law. So you can imagine if you're looking for a job, especially in government, you have to get a certificate of good conduct. That means once I have served sentences, I can never get a job. So that's something we have lobbied. I think there could be some results, positive results now. Because even when you're lobbying, even the justice system or the government, when they look at your background and what you're up to, what have you achieved, what have you helped the government achieve, because we are really partners. Another thing that I must say, we don't go competing with government or showing them, we are these people who are so good, we have the money. We want to be partners so that if there's a gap or something we can be able to do, we do it. Not necessarily because we want to be seen, we are the ones doing this. So the government appreciates such kind of efforts because ideally everything we do, the government should be doing. But we do it and we don't go singing everywhere we are doing this. We look at them as partners and this is a journey we want to walk together. So the many things we've been able to change, some of them will take forever to be into law. Because I think in our changing laws sometimes takes quite a lifetime. You imagine even when we were changing the constitution, what we had to go through. But lobbying, that is one of the things you do, positive lobbying, advocacy, and many things have been listened to. That I am almost sure that in a few years, this thing of people's records will be of the past. So something else that there is now rehabilitation, there is reintegration. Rehabilitation now also has other names, correction, reformation, because we say reintegration is the end result of imprisonment. Everyone behind bars will one time go home to where they came from if they don't die within their sentences. So the purpose of imprisonment is actually reintegration. So rehabilitation is to probably make you a better person. You go to the prisons, maybe they realize skills, you need skills, and because now there's industries that prisons are famously known for. Even if you are working for the government, ideally you are supposed to get skills so that these skills can be used for reintegration. Like we have said, not having the document called good conduct, it means it's really difficult to look for a job. So you have to use this skill that you have gotten behind the bars to help you establish your life. So those people that actually take this seriously, the offenders or the inmates that take it very seriously, will use that skill. The government pays for them exams, the trade tests. Those who have been in prison longer will do grade 3, grade 2, and grade 1. By the time you are doing grade 1 with the National Industry and Trading Center, NITA, you are a very skilled person. And you see, the government has paid for you because ideally they're not charged. Sometimes now, because of course we know funding is an issue even in government, some partners will come and support in that. But it means if you are leaving prisons with this skill, could be carpentry, could be masonry, could be mechanic, could be polishing. If you're not able to get the certificate of good conduct, you can employ yourself. Now that's where we come in, because recently in the last 5 years, we are focusing quite more on reintegration. That these skills you have gotten in prison, how can we at least help you to use them? Even if you don't have the certificate of good conduct, you cannot be able to get like an employment per se. You can employ yourself with the skills that you have. Because you have even seen the seats in the parliament were made at committee, and those are really expensive, high quality seats. It means we have the skills that we needed. In fact, one time recently I talked to the Commissioner General, and he said that maybe one time, not even maybe, that what we need to do is get people who have proper skills and have their names, so that in case a government department wants something done, could be a bed, could be seats, these people can get jobs. Because now in that space where we are seeing, of course, the lawmakers are different from the correctional officers, they are different from, so everybody has their role. Because you can't rush the system to be able to change that, how can you help? So if any government department needs something that can be produced by prisoners, or people who have already served their sentences, we can always recommend them. So people like us can write recommendations because we know these people. Because the biggest challenge I think people in the community have is, how do I trust this person? How can I trust a person who was in prison? So you see, now me, I have to make sure that somebody is in prison, they have really changed. Because if I'm vouching for you, I had better be sure that that my name. So that's why you have to really work with them closely, with the officers and everyone, counselors, psychologists, so that this person really changes the way of thinking. Because then if you don't do that, what was the purpose of all these years of rehabilitation? 10 years maybe, the government has spent resources on you, and then we can't even give you anything to do out there. So what we say, once you get into prison, if people want to help you, they start working with you then. Maybe even at the courts, because that's where it starts. So by the time you leave, you have really gone through whatever it is at a 360 turn. If it was your way of thinking, your attitude, if you are angry with the society or people, there are people that can give you anger management classes. If it was even robbery, you can really go through it and see what you did, because we expect you to be a better person when you leave. But unfortunately, we have a few people that come back. Those are there because probably the out there was so difficult for you, and you realized you still picked somebody's phone or you stole again. So sometimes these are people who have to go through a lot of psychological interventions to be able to change their way of thinking and just be able to start even from very small. Because sometimes small beginnings can make you be successful. But it's a journey. It's a real journey. I remember one time somebody calling me because of a daycare we did in a prison. And he told me, actually it was a man, not even a woman, I don't know how that happened, maybe the father of a child. And he told me, now, you are making these daycares in the prisons so good. So you want us to commit crimes so that our children... I was a bit, I didn't know what to say because somehow they are telling the truth. But again, that's our space. So what we tell people is sometimes changing somebody's life, you start with the environment they are living in so that they can see, actually, this is what I'm missing by being out there. So once you give some, say a daycare or a bed or a place to do computer studies, this somebody is now hopeful that when they leave, this is what they'll engage in. They are hoping that actually this child I have come with to prison because the child is innocent. This is what I'm making this child miss. So once I leave, my child can actually be able to lead a normal life. So our desire is to actually show people that you can actually lead your life better out there than here. Because if they don't have any exposure of any good thing, or they're just living miserably, does anybody imagine they want to go out there and they don't even know maybe what has happened out there? Maybe some have been there 10 years behind bars. You don't even know what has changed now. Like now, for example, if you don't have a computer skill, what can you be in this country? Even how to operate a phone. So sometimes we are giving skills so that once you are out, you have no reason to come back. Because you're empowered, you're not so behind more than the people who are outside. But sometimes to balance and really show people that you're not just helping criminals is something up to now I still struggle with, because people are not happy in many times with what we are doing, that you're giving TVs to people in the prisons. What do you want them to learn? We're like, we just want them to know what happens out there. And a TV can also be an educative tool. So it's quite something that you have to balance with. But we want to also imagine they are human beings. And once you are brought in, people can only improve your life. They can't make it worse. You've already been punished. Make it a little bit better. But that is a question that I have to really answer to people. I have to answer to people, because now prisons look like these very nice environments that people would even want to go and sit there because there are no jobs out there. But then again, not having your freedom, no matter what kind of environment you are put in, nothing is more important than your freedom. Once the judge hits, you are put behind bars for whatever many years. That is where life actually starts for the people in the prisons. because sometimes it's extremely difficult to know that now, maybe 30 years, 40 years, I'm behind bars. Of course, there are those who will quickly realize, actually, what I did was grave. There are some really serious crimes, things like robbery with violence, defilement, even murder. I think at that point you realize, but sometimes also to be able to accept that. And that is why counseling is a key. That's something that is really key in the work that we do, because this person has to accept their situation. Because if you don't accept your situation, that is when you become even a bother to the authorities. We don't have death row anymore. Of course, now anyone that was on death row has been committed to life. So some people have even said, maybe I should just even be killed rather than being in prison. Because if you think your life now is over. But of course, we also have resentencing. Some cases go through resentencing and you don't have to live life. Others, of course, go through power of mercy. You don't have to go through life. But the initial stage that now I have to start my sentence, most people are in denial. And just like any other things that are really difficult for somebody to accept, including some illness. There are some illnesses you are given, and this is a death sentence. Denial. So the first and most important thing is to just help this person realize that this is what you have to go through, because you can't leave prison in any other way. And that is why counseling for us comes first. Like I said beforehand, we sort of partner with the government. So the government also has hired counselors. We have spiritual people who support you spiritually. We have counselors can be professionals who are trained in different ways to help people go through whatever it is. But then again, if you have a counselor, two counselors and over 700 or 1,000 people, how can they even deal with that? And that's how now as partners, we come in to support. Because once somebody accepts, which is a process, once somebody accepts now, I'll be behind bars, that's the only way you can now start having other programs. Even if it's a carpentry I talked about, if it is a sewing or knitting, you will never start those programs until you accept that this is how my life is going to be. And even when you accept, there's the lapse. You may go there and you realize, why am I doing this? I'm here for life. And you see, unfortunately for us in Kenya, we have not quite said life is how many years. Although now the system is trying to give a definite sentence. So life, you don't know how many years that is. So you could even tell yourself, why am I going through this program? Why do I want to learn how to be a carpenter? It's an idea, how will it help me? So sometimes you could be going through a program, but you in the middle, you're like, I don't have to do this. So now going back. So it's a process, a lot of process. There are people who have refused to do anything. They are there in the prisons. They have decided, you know what? I'm not going to do anything. But also, we have encouraged them because we have realized if you go, for example, for resentencing or even power of mercy, one of the things we will look at is what have you been engaging yourself in prison? Have you gone through programs of rehabilitation? Have you gone through counseling? Have you gone through anger management? What can your colleagues, the inmates, say about you? Are you a pain in the wards? Do you just bother people? So all these things now people have realized, they actually help. So people are now more and more getting into these activities. Behind bars, we have innocent people who have not committed this, but somehow they fell through the cracks. And you go to prison maybe because you don't have, maybe, like I said, access to a lawyer. Or you give up, you say, whatever. But you live with a lot of bitterness. And you have no reason to live. We have such kind of people. But I guess because now prisons are very open, somehow those people are now the minority. Because now there's a lot of somebody talking to you, and that is why now you have resentencing, and maybe somebody can look at your case, somebody else, maybe not the person who initially put you into the prison or gave the judgment, somebody else looks at the case differently. And we have very many people who have left prisons because their cases went to trial or they were resentenced. because somebody somewhere, maybe the judgment, poor judgment, but somebody else now has an opportunity to look at your case, or you can sit in a panel of the Power of Mercy Committee. People will listen, look at your case. Before, these things never used to happen. Once you're inside, you're inside. But now there are all this, even the justice system is also improving the judiciary, that they can actually listen to your case again and look at your case again. And we have heard even of some judges who actually apologized. They said, we are sorry that, this happened. We have many other organizations that also maybe are more specialized on looking at people's cases. Sometimes Faraja more goes to people's heart and supporting them, but we have very, very good lawyers who will look at every small thing about this case, So, and this is what I'm saying about partnerships, because people may have a strength on this, others have a strength on this. So if somebody gets resentenced and they leave prison, Faraja will be there to now support them. So you see, somebody else may have helped them go through retrial, and somebody helps them walk out of the prison and help them start their life. So everybody is important in this space. But there are people who are so bitter with the system, extremely bitter, and some of them will probably never forgive. But then again, if you live in bitterness, because I know people who have left, and now, of course, they lost everything. How do you start telling people, oh, I was innocent? Nobody sometimes even believes that you are innocent. So something that will happen, and somebody left prison, whether you are innocent, they'll always say, she has come. That is why some of these things are happening. Those are tags sometimes you live with. So imprisonment, by the way, it's one of those things that it's extremely, extremely difficult situation to find yourself in. But we have also met people who are actually very good now. They become role models to society, and they help other people. Once you get into prison, there are many ways of getting out of prison. But of course, the one that we all know is your term is over. You have finished your term, and everybody, of course, everyone that goes to prison will at one point leave prison. So majority of the people go through that route. Anyone can apply for mercy. Anyone can petition. It's called petitioning. There's a committee. Like now, I have joined the committee. Our role is to advise the president. That's not a small role. That means before you advise the president on anything like that, you have to have gone through processes and processes. Because the president will not just release anyone, because he knows what it's all about as well. So this is actually another privilege, that you actually given a role like that. To be able to look at this person, you have to meet them, you have to get reports from the victim, you have to get reports from the probation on the environment, you have to get reports sometimes even from the DCI, the NIS, before anyone is given mercy. You have to go through those processes. So there is no way DCI or NIS will say this person can leave prison, or they can advise the president if they have not done their due diligence. So anyone that goes out through the power of mercy really deserves it. And of course, there are many cases that will not go through, because you will look at the case, and the president has a prerogative. He's the only one. So even if the committee felt this person, the president has a prerogative, because that is also his duty, to make sure that he's not bringing people back to the community who don't deserve. But like we said again, it's a right for everyone to be able to petition. There are different criteria that anyone that petitions has to go through. And that is why you will see even the people in that committee, the chairperson is the Attorney General. That is the government's lawyer. There's no way the Attorney General will take cases to the president if he knows, Harper, there's a question mark. So what we are doing again, and I think we are going to roll out some activities as Power of Mercy now, is to educate the public also. Because I think that is what is missing. And I believe soon, probably even March or April, we want to go out there and educate people on what it really means, who gets pardon. And sometimes, why not? People say, we are not hearing people getting out of the prisons. We are not hearing the president. Because the president may decide, I'm not ready, I'm not comfortable. Because you can imagine people getting out, and maybe they start doing things out there. Now, the president had that had removed them from prison. You should have waited for them to finish their terms. So it's really a huge responsibility for us. We have to sign that, you will not get conflicted in any way. It is actually a very, very, very huge responsibility, because you also know if the victims, for example, are not comfortable, you have to listen to them. But sometimes you try and do reconciliation. Some inmates will actually reach out, will tell someone, I would like to speak to the person I offended. Is there a way you can bring them to where I am? Sometimes even online. And if anybody is asking for that, and sometimes the victims will say, we have forgiven you. Whatever you did, we can't bring that life back. If it was a death, we have forgiven you. But they would also need to put it in writing, that actually they are willing to forgive you. And that means before you even look at this documentation and write anything, you have to have the evidence that these people are willing. You have to interview people at home that this person can come back and be given mercy. Even for me, like to belong to the mercy committee, they had to go home and find out what kind of person is Jane. I didn't even know what kind of person is she, what is her background, because you have to really have a clean record to be able even to go through that space. But then again, I think because of my work with the prisons for a long time with Faraja, that also supported me even getting into that space. And what actually propelled me to be a member of this committee is because of my interest in reintegration. Because you realize most of the people that have gotten out through power of mercy have served long sentences in the prisons, because it's a very long process as well. By the time your case is being reviewed and you're getting information from the DCI, from the NIS, it can take a long time. So by the time you're getting out, you have served probably 10, 20 years. How do you start your life now after those many years? So for example, when I was interviewed and I was asked, Jane, we have a challenge of reintegration, because the government also wants to make sure that everybody they have discharged, even if it's on mercy or pardon, get something to do in their lives. I said, I'm already in this space and I can be able to help. Even if it's not Faraja, there are many other people who don't know, but my role is to create awareness that once you leave, you can start your life. Because some people will go back, not because they are criminals, but it is so hard out there that you will find yourself just getting back because you need a means of livelihood. You need to survive. So that was my strength, that she's already in this space. This has been the challenge, reintegration. How can somebody like Jane use her networks, use her background to be able to help these people that leave the prisons? And you can imagine that's now the government wanting to help the people that are behind bars. Because these are Kenyans. We have realized these are Kenyans. Some of them are really good people. Some of them committed crimes when they were very young. Another something else that we have to look at is what were the circumstances of you committing crime? How old were you? What really happened at that space? So somebody maybe was very young, very naive, but now they talk to you and they say, this is what I did, this is what pushed me, this is what I have done in prisons, and this is what I will do when I leave. So I think we need to get this thing out there. And again, because I'm a teacher by profession, maybe also to be able to communicate this issue very, very well. And like I said, in our work plan, we have that awareness creation and just educating the people that we don't have to be so punitive, because if you're given a second chance, that may be just what you need to be able to change your life. So for sure, there is no way the president will just get out anyone. It's a lengthy process. It's a very lengthy process. Even for us, we're in this committee, we have had to go through induction and training and knowing even how to interview this inmate to be able to make sure that by the time you are now giving a list to the chairman who takes it to the president, you are convinced beyond any reasonable doubt that this person is okay. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's the president. And if his conscience tells him, I'm not ready to get Jane out of prison, there's nothing we can do. We just maybe communicate to you and say, maybe try again. Plus also God's timing sometimes. So there are people who could have applied, but because maybe the system took a bit long, their terms just come and they leave prison. So it's quite something that we are trying to even look from other jurisdictions. How do they do it from other, so that we can learn? But I have now been there for maybe about 4 months, 5 months. Awareness is what we really want to create, and probably we'll even be going out to schools or tell people, because it's also a way of even crime prevention. Instead of getting yourself to go and apply for mercy, don't commit crime. Don't commit crime, yeah? But yeah, so it's something that soon we are going to make it really big and people know what exactly happens, so that everybody feels safe that this person has been discharged because of this. But yes, I know that goes around, that people are just letting anyone go. Why are we, so that I have heard. But believe you me, it's quite a process that we go through. Some things make it extremely hard for people to reintegrate effectively. There is our perceptions as a community. One's a prisoner or is a prisoner. So stigma is very, very real. Sometimes our environments at home, that people, you may be behind bars for a long time, you'll find maybe your spouse remarried, maybe your children have grown up and they don't even want to see you. One case I witnessed, I wish I could remember the year, but there's a man who had stayed in prison for 40 years. His name was Kibaki, I think, or Weru. He left, I think he had gone in at about 30, he left in almost at 80. And he got mercy at that point. Why I know he got mercy is because we were approached as Faraja to support this man. Unfortunately, he's late now. His family completely refused to have him back. His wife had died. He was not even married by the time he went to prison, so he didn't have children. It was so bad that he had to stay in a boys' institution that is on Jogoo Road called Makadara Probation Hostel for boys. Because, unfortunately for us in Kenya here, we don't have what is called halfway homes or transitional homes where people can stay before they fight their feet. So the family completely refused to take this man back. And we were approached as Faraja, amongst other partners. Fortunately, his nephew agreed to host him in Narumoru. And I remember we went there with the power of mercy then. I was not a member then. Maybe that's why God repaid me back. Because we went there, and this nephew said, he even showed us a space. This old man, he can live here. That is after a lot of talking, and now we had to get this place a place to live, a home sort of. And a few people were talked to. Now the department that has a mandate to reintegrate people in Kenya is called Probation and Aftercare Services. This is aftercare now, because you've been in prison, you have served your term. So of course they approached us, and even then the CEO of Power of Mercy then was called Michael Kagika, a very good man. He approached us and many other people. So when we went, all of us, we decided we will look for people. We all contributed. We bought some iron sheets, some wood, to build this small home. So we divided ourselves. There are those who are buying iron sheets. There are those who are buying maybe something to cook with. There are those who are buying a mattress. So we all joined forces. And within a month, we built a nice 2-bedroom house for this man. Now it was about 80. We bought some small gas cooker stove for him. And we actually went to open the home. And now we took him back. At that point, we even invited the community, the church. They came. He even said he wanted to get a wife. And somebody said they will introduce him to some ladies. I think by the time he was actually dying, he had a wife. So that is a case that had been completely rejected by the society and the family. And probably it's because maybe at that point we didn't quite create awareness that this man, I think it was a murder case, after 40 years, the president has seen fit, that was I think President Uhuru's time, has seen it fit to give him, to exercise mercy on him. Because now at 80, surely, because sometimes even the age, you have to look at the age of somebody when they are being given this mercy. So that's a case I really witnessed because I was in those 2 trips. We went to Narumoru to see the place. Then we went again now to bring him home, and it was a celebration. There was dance and everything. So it started very bleak, but it ended up very well. But unfortunately, maybe because of the many years in prison, sometimes it's extremely hard for someone to cope with the new environment. He didn't stay for long, and he died. But that is, for me, it was a success story. And because we were all involved in this, it became our success, all of us. So that's among the few cases that I have had. So that is where I was saying many of the people that go through mercy have stayed for so long that sometimes it's so difficult for them to stay long. And that's why we need now many people to be out in the community, even to provide maybe counseling, because you also need post-release. You know, you need pre before you leave and post, so that even somebody can even tell you, this is now what happens after 40 years, many things have changed. I remember that man even going through the superhighway was like an issue, how these roads, when you are going to prison, there was nothing. Now it's like you are a child, you know, being trained extreme how to live with people. We don't know how to live with people. You are used to life in prison of just queuing and going for everything. Paka, when you're at home, you're waiting for someone to tell you it is time to eat. So, so it was a success story, and even if he died, we know he died happily. So if we could work as a community, and on the other day, these people have really repented. They have asked for forgiveness, at least majority of them. Let's embrace them and support so that their lives become better, and they also contribute in this economy. Prisons are like a hospital. Today it is somebody else. Today is me or someone else, God forbid. So make them a little bit better, so that if by any chance you find yourself there, even if it's for a night, as you go through a case, that it's a place you could say, this belongs. And you know, Nelson Mandela said that we judge people by how they treat the lowest of the people. Actually, his thinking was the prisons. How you treat inmates, you judge a society by that. And that is why I think in our country now we have what is called the open door policy, that any partners that want to come and join forces to help the government, come in, you're welcome. As long as you come legally, you come through the proper ways, they are open to anyone. Give people these jobs because people have the skills, let them help. Like now we have many people in the prisons living taxes. If they get their small jobs or whatever, see, they also contribute in this paying of taxes. So I think but I have seen a lot of improvement in our country. There is definitely a lot that has changed, and I'm sure there'll be more changes. Let's embrace them. Everybody that lives in prison has a story, and the story needs an ending. And an ending is successful reintegration. One case I remember, and I've said this because he actually goes with us in prisons. There's a young man who was in community prison for quite a few years. And when I listened to his story, he was involved in crime because he was given guns for some people to keep. He was a university student. And I guess when you're young and you're given some money, even if you're not a criminal yourself, if they are paying you to keep guns, because nobody would ever think guns can be in a university hostel. So this man, of course, when it was discovered, he was an accomplice, and he had to drop out of university and spent quite a few years in community maximum prison. And when he came, he was introduced first. I didn't actually know him at first until I was given his story by the then late regional commander of prisons called Madam Wanini. She actually called me and told me, Jane, there's this man. And I have been his boss. I mean, I have seen him change. But you know, sometimes the prisons, once you're out at the door, that is where the relationship comes to an end. And I called him, and he came to Faraja, and we talked. And he went to university, and they were willing to take him back. Nairobi University. He was doing engineering. The only thing he was told, you can never, ever sleep in a hostel. We are going to have you back, but accommodation for university hostels, we can't. So he was quite from a poor background, and that's the sad bit, because many people are from very poor backgrounds. And now he came, and he needed a place to stay. He needed even a computer. And we decided, let us do these things for him. So we paid his rent, we gave him money for food, and we bought him a computer. And he went back to school, he graduated. Now he's like one of our people that speak on our behalf. And he's doing very well. He has a family. So if we had not listened to that man, I don't know what would have happened. Probably, I don't know, I didn't tell her I'd come talk to you. I'm sure she has talked to Justus. She's called Beatrice. Beatrice is one of the people we also supported. Some people don't want their stories to be talked about, and we respect that. They say, please help me, but don't let it not, and we respect that. But there are few that we want to also use, because like I told you, none of us has ever spent time in prison as a prisoner, so we may not have the inside story. And sometimes people want a lived experience. So there are a few people that we have talked to, and they want to go with us to give the story of Faraja. So those are the few that are okay with me mentioning their stories. But those who don't want us to mention, we still support and we respect them. But again, because like I said, we look for funding, and sometimes stories are the only ones that can sell for us to be able to receive funding. So those that don't have issues with us telling their stories or them telling their stories, we always ask for a consent. So that, because now you can give somebody support, but you find yourself in court that you used my story and I didn't give you. So it's also a bit sensitive sometimes to talk to someone. But like now, this year, 2024, in our current strategic plan, we want to support 300 people. By December, God willing, we want to support about 300. The last 2 years, we have had 100 and 150. So this year, we want to support as many as 300. And we are trying to look for ways to be able to do this with other networks, even people that have left prison. That if you come from, say, for example, the coast region, and we can support somebody through you, we don't have to come there. But you can also be helped to help that person and receive them. Because that way then we are able to create these community champions that can be able to support each other. But like I said, in fact, currently we are saying our focus is reintegration. Because you have seen that where the challenge is. That you have these many skills we give you in the prisons, but if we don't support you to use them, then it was like we didn't do anything. So right now, Faraja's focus is reintegration, reintegration, and reintegration. Even if it's paying your school fees to go back to school, to maybe proceed with your education, we want to do that because that is still integration. Because many people dropped out of school. So reintegration is something that we are really trying to talk about, because that is where really the gap is. Because in the prisons, you are sheltered. At least there is food, there's a place to sleep. But when you step out, how do you start your life? And now that is what reintegration, other people call it re-entry, resettlement. You have to be in some community. You have to be helped by someone. Somebody has to hold your hand, no matter what. So that's what really we are focusing on in the next few years, God giving us the grace and the resources. That is the way we want to go. Sometimes when we're doing reintegration, we even call the police. And there's one policeman who actually agreed to be in the reintegration plan. He had arrested somebody, and we called him because we told him, this person has changed. Please now take him back to the community. And he agreed. That is how people are willing to actually embrace that people have changed. So if you ever get an opportunity to call a group of people who have actually been in somebody's life, we would be willing to do that. Because like now, once somebody leaves prison, they'll maybe go through probation for supervision. Some people have to get supervision even after their sentences, just to support you, to monitor you and everything. Then there are people like Faraja who now take you and hold your hand. So all people are involved. I have seen churches really, really supporting people once they are out, not condemning you. Even now, I have seen Nyumba Kumi embracing the people back to the society, but it's because now awareness is getting into people's lives, and because we have seen very many people, even people that are known in the society, is going to prison. Not just those people who imagine are very low, even very big people, sometimes going to prison. We have seen even politicians who have succeeded even in politics, and they are once in prison. So the community has really changed. Even if we are not yet still there, it's a huge group of people that are supporting this journey, and we would wish that would happen. But we are also appreciating that there are many people who are willing to just listen. And even if they didn't know, once they get to know, they're like, yes, we will come in. So if anybody wants to reach us, there is info@farajafoundation.or.ke. That's our main place you can reach us into. We have our website, which is www.farajafoundation.or.ke. You can leave a message. You can look at the programs that we support. They are clearly illustrated there. And we actually ask for support even on the website. Whatever you want to support. If you want to support a youth who was in prison, maybe to go through school, you can decide, I'm going to adopt this child. I'll pay their school fees through Faraja. If you want to help a woman who is in prison anywhere in the country, if you want to help a man, because we're not discriminating anyone, we are working with everyone. There are children behind bars with their mothers, 0 to 4, and some of these children will leave their mothers behind bars. They would need to go back to school. If you want to support such a child, you can do all these things through the media I have given. Like I said, we don't have any government funding. We depend on people of goodwill. We have many individual supporters who just decide, we have heard about these people and we are going to support. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to come and speak to the public is that let us help our brothers, our sisters. These are our brothers, they are our sisters, they are our children, and they need help. They need help. So any person of goodwill out there, and if you want any accountability of any sort, if you want your receipts, we shall give you if you support anyone. If you look at our websites, our annual reports, our audit reports are public documents, because you also want to be accountable. So Faraja Foundation is ready to welcome anyone, even just to learn more about what it's all about. Even visit a prison. We are willing to take you to any prison you would like to visit. We shall get the relevant permission for you, even if it is within where you come from, your own home. Because some people may want to begin at home. Like we know charity begins at home. We are willing to educate you and to help you even as you help us. And we are going to work together in this journey.